Let us pray. We, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our considerations. Amen.
Introduction of visitors.
Minister of Transportation and Utilities.
Mr. Speaker, I am privileged today to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly His Excellency Fadil Mbaga, High Commissioner for the United Republic of Tanzania. His Excellency was appointed High Commissioner to Canada in August of 1991 and is making his first official visit to our province. He has led a distinguished career which has included his most recent position as the Principal Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister of Tanzania, and serving as an economist in the Ministries of Economic Affairs and Development Planning, Finance and Planning, and Industries. Alberta and Tanzania have a long history of cooperative relations. In 1991, Alberta exports to Tanzania were approximately $105,000. Since 1974, Alberta has contributed just under $1.2 million to Tanzania through the Agency for International Development to assist with a variety of projects ranging from refugee resettlement, vocational training for rural women, to establishing a fresh water supply, adult literacy programs, and agricultural development. While in Alberta, His Excellency will be briefed by officials on our province's resources, capabilities, and interests in Tanzania. I would ask His Excellency to rise in the Speaker's Gallery and to receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Member for Edmonton Avonmore.
Speaker, I beg leave to introduce Bill 262, a bill entitled Equal Pay for Work of Equal Value. It would bring into both the private and public sector provisions for pay equity and would go some way to addressing the issue of women's poverty.
The honourable member for Edmonton Avonmore has moved first reading to Bill 262, Equal Pay for Work of Equal Value Act. Those in favour of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 262, Equal Pay for Work of Equal Value Act, introduced by the honourable member, Ms. M. Lang, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Solicitor General.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file 4 copies of an answer to written question 279.
Minister of Health.
to table the annual report of the Alberta Association of Optometrists for the year ended December 31, 1990.
Introduction of special guests.
The Attorney General.
It's my to introduce to you and through you to the Assembly 19 delightful grade 6 students from the Bolf School. They're accompanied by their teacher, Mrs. Margaret Pirro, and bus driver, Mr. Alan Kennedy. They're seated in the members' gallery. I'd ask that they rise and receive the cordial welcome of the Assembly.
Innisfail, followed by Calgary Forest Lawn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to introduce to you today, and through you, the rest of the members of the Assembly, 47 a senior group from Big Valley, Elnora, Delburn, and the Red Deer area. Their organizer are Maureen Gonaware and Martha Temple. They're situated in the public gallery, and I would like to ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome in the gallery, please.
Calgary Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, this is one of those rare opportunities which I get to introduce guests from the city of Calgary. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce to you and through you to members of the Assembly, two cousins from the city of Calgary, Mrs. Dolores Michaud and Wilda Pashak. I'd ask that they stand and receive the usual warm welcome of the House.
Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, we're honored today to have a number of visitors from Canadian visitors from the province of Quebec. They've been in Alberta for the last week visiting under the auspices of the Voyager Canada program, a particular brainchild of the federal government through the Secretary of State's Department, giving Canadians an opportunity to be with and talk with and live with their fellow Canadians in other parts of the country. Mr. Speaker, they are 55 in number. They're joined by group leaders and helpers Isabelle Arsenault, Pierre Lachance, Marie-Paul Therian, Hélène Coates, and Brenda Tomlinson. And they're joined as well by Margaret Pade, who spends a great deal of her time in this assembly as well. And I'd ask them all to rise, Mr. Speaker, and receive the warm and cordial welcome of all members of the Assembly.
Ministerial statements.
Transportation and Utilities.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome this opportunity to remind members of this Assembly that this week we celebrate for the 23rd consecutive year National Transportation Week. During this special week, we recognize and salute the contributions of more than 1 million Canadians in the transportation sector, including several thousand here in the province of Alberta. These people meet the daily challenge of ensuring that our transportation system is not only efficient and reliable, but responsive to the needs of its customers, you and I, and all Albertans. This year, the government of Alberta reached a remarkable milestone in the development of our highway system by completing its 10-year commitment to provide 2 divided highways with the Trans-Canada designation across the northern and southern segments of our province. The Yellowhead Highway 16, stretching 561 kilometers from Lloydminster to the Jasper Park gates, was officially opened just last month. It created during its time 4,500 person years of direct employment and 5,500 years of indirect employment. Tomorrow afternoon, I have the honor to officially open the newly twinned Trans-Canada Highway 1 at a special ceremony being held at the Ranchland Teepee Rest Area, midway between Brooks and Bassano. We have twinned almost 260 kilometers of this highway, creating at the same time about 1,800 person years of direct and 2,200 years of indirect employment. Completion of these 2 major projects on budget and on schedule is a tribute to the successful partnership between government and Alberta's private sector construction industry. Many, many talented individuals worked on these projects, Mr. Speaker, overcoming numerous physical problems in the process. Indeed, these people understand now only too well that our need for transportation is matched only by the difficulty of providing it.
Leader of the Opposition. opposition.
Way to go, Boomers. Clap for yourself, nobody else. Mr. Speaker, I would like to respond to the ministerial announcement. And as usual with ministerial announcements, it's always hard to disagree with what's in it, Mr. Speaker. And I certainly agree with the minister that this is a major job creator in both rural and urban Alberta. But, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be a little more specific and talk about something that happened, especially in our two major cities, with the cutbacks in the transportation grants, Mr. Speaker. Now, I know that's been worked out that some of the major projects will go ahead in the cities, but I want to tell the minister, Mr. Speaker, that's still creating some problems because they've really raided the ample grants, Mr. Speaker, which has a significant impact in the future for us, and especially representing an inner city, Mr. Speaker, and can also be a major job creator in the long term, Mr. Speaker. So I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, while we agree that transportation is important, we agree with some of those major projects going ahead, the ample grants do perform a very important role for job creation, plus lighting such things as the inner city, Mr. Speaker. So I'd ask her to relook at this whole problem. No, it's not going to change in this budget year, but I really would make it a high priority if we could in the next budget year, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Oral question period.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this government has admitted losing at least $566 million on Novotel. But, Mr. Speaker, just as importantly, we have another $216 million that may be at risk through the so-called system financing portfolio that none of the rest of the private sector was willing to touch, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take a little closer look at the system's financing mess, Mr. Speaker. It looks like most of this had to do with harebrained schemes in the United States. I would like to file with the Assembly, Mr. Speaker, a copy of an article about the financial arrangement between Novotel and GMD Limited, Mr. Speaker. It's quite a vivid, sort of the hand that feeds you, the hand biting you, coming from the Rural Communications magazine about Novotel, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is about a financial arrangement between Novotel and GMT Limited, partnership of Greenville, North Carolina. Mr. Speaker, the key thing, it reveals that Novotel may be in contravention of U.S. communications regulations if it is forced to take an equity position in this company. To the Minister of Technology, Mr. Speaker, was it the practice of Novotel to obtain equity as security for its financing of these rural cell phone companies in potential contravention of U.S. law? And I'd ask the Minister what kind of security that is.
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, the business of systems financing is carried out by all of the players in cellular systems in the United States. It operates much the same way as the General Motors Acceptance Corporation of Financing does in relation to the sale of cars. It's a marketing feature and one that has proven very valuable. As far as the security is concerned, each and every sale where financing is arranged is secured firstly by the security back on the equipment purchased, secondly by the exclusive license that is obtained by the purchaser and held by the purchaser, which has very good value, and then thirdly by the shares of the company itself, which are pledged as security, a third base of security.
That's precisely the point. That could be in contravention of the U.S. law, Mr. Speaker. That's what this article is all about. Is the minister not aware of that, Mr. Speaker? And even as late, Mr. Speaker, they were throwing good money out. As late as March of this year, GMD received more than $500,000 from Novotel, Mr. Speaker. This is not their money, it's the taxpayers' money. Continuing, Mr. Speaker. And I guess the question beyond the contravention of the law here, Mr. Speaker, is in the first place, why was Novotel handing out loans of Alberta taxpayers' money for rural development in the USA? This is especially ironic when we know how deeply in trouble rural Alberta is, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, they were not handing out money. It was a basis of financing for sales made. As I say, much the same way as General Motors Acceptance Corporation operates. It's not much different. But the honourable leader continues to raise these matters before us for political purposes and grandstanding. We've had many examples of that. In fact, Mr. Speaker, there have been each day he has a new revelation, something that is already in the public's knowledge or is on file at any place of public reporting or registration. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I think one would say that there have been so many red herrings floated by members opposite that we could almost start a new fishing industry.
Mr. Speaker, yes, we can go on for months with new revelations on this matter, Mr. Speaker. Months on government incompetence and wasted money, Mr. Speaker, and we will do it, too, Mr. Speaker. Let me just move on from there, Mr. Speaker, just to move to Mr. Fixit, the Treasurer, Mr. Speaker. In the past, this government has used numbered companies to hide its financial dealings. SOFCO being a good example, Mr. Speaker. We can't get a public inquiry because the government doesn't want the truth to come out, Mr. Speaker, so we have to do the job for them.
That's right.
But now the provincial government has rolled the Novotel Systems financing assets into another holding company, Mr. Speaker. And my question then to the Treasurer is simply this. The Premier refuses to call a public inquiry, but will the Treasurer at least assure Albertans that full Novotel Systems financing information will be provided to the public through the public accounts, or will once again this government operate in secrecy by holding only a majority position in a numbered company, Mr. Speaker, which is going to be...
Mr. Speaker, I must agree with the member from Norwood that in fact the province does put forward all the information relative to in this case, he made a specific reference to SOFCO, which is a real estate holding company which was funded by the federal government when this province stepped in to secure the assets of Northwest Trust and continue its viability. That information has been filed in the Assembly, and therefore, first of all, the member's position is quite wrong when he suggests it isn't provided. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we have not yet fully decided he will handle the workout on the financing loans the member referred to, but what I can say, and I can give a commitment upon it, I know that the Auditor General, the independent servant of this Legislative Assembly, will in fact put forward in his report the way in which the province has treated and handled the management of the assets, sometimes referred to as the finance contract, which are part of the Novotel transaction, Mr. Speaker. It is, I'll tell the House at this point, Mr. Speaker, it is our intention to try to manage these assets through Northwest Trust, to have a facility for handling these kinds of transactions, and therefore they'll be the vehicle to handle the workout of these transactions. And through the auditor's report, Mr. Speaker, you'll see this depicted and shown, and that'll be part of his report to the Assembly.
Question, Leader of the Opposition.
We're not going to get the answers. That's what it comes down to, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to designate my second question, member from Edmonton Highlands.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure all members of the Assembly are now aware of a tragic incident which took place at a daycare in Edmonton on Friday, resulting in the death of a little girl from a playground injury at that daycare. And in raising the subject, I'd like to indicate my sympathy, and I assume the sympathy of all members of the Assembly, to her family and friends and all the people at the daycare center. But, Mr. Speaker, there is a government-related issue here, and that is that a year and a half ago, the Alberta government decided to change the regulations of the child-staff ratio governing the rules at daycares. Toddlers used to be in a category where they had one worker for every 5 toddler, and the ratio was increased to 1 to 6, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the minister responsible if he'd be prepared to reverse that rule and bring us back to a 1 to 5 ratio at daycares for toddlers.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the concern that the member for Highland has expressed as it relates to this tragic incident. I can tell the member that I took it upon myself to go and visit the daycare first thing this morning and had an opportunity of talking firsthand with the owner, the director, and some of the workers that were on that playground when that tragic accident occurred. I can say this, Mr. Speaker, that in this instance that there was more than adequate supervision, that the circumstances were not related to child ratios, that the worker was right there, acted very quickly, very appropriately, was well qualified, had CPR in this, and regrettably, the tragedy still occurred. As it relates to the daycare reforms, Mr. Speaker, they've had exhaustive consultation with parents, with daycare owners and operators, with advocacy groups right across the province. We brought those reforms in after that lengthy consultation, Mr. Speaker. I feel for the most part they're working extremely well. We did indicate that we were prepared to monitor it on an ongoing basis, and if it comes back that this is a concern or if this is a problem, certainly we're always prepared to look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I understand that the staffing ratio was, in this case, within the regulations. That wasn't the point of my question. Let me try to rephrase it so the minister understands. I don't believe that any person here really believes that you could look after 6 toddlers all at once, Mr. Speaker. Is the minister prepared to do what is done in other provinces and at least go back to the 1-to-5 ratio that obtains in most provinces, if not a 1-to-4 ratio, such as they have in Manitoba?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the ratios vary from province to province and age categories to age categories. Our ratios, for the most part, Mr. Speaker, are comparable to other provinces, and as I say, appear to be serving children well. But if parents or advocacy groups or others lead me to believe otherwise, Mr. Speaker, as I've said to the member earlier, I'm always prepared to look at those things.
Well, I'll make sure the minister does hear from the advocacy groups, Mr. Speaker. While he's reconsidering this, then, will he also reconsider the enforcement guide that governs the application of regulations for daycare, so that people are aware that if they break the regulations, that they're going to suffer distinct but certain sanctions, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, that's always been the case, but the member knows that we are just in the process of finalizing some of the reforms that we began introducing some time ago. And one of the processes that we've gone through, again, is a consultative process with parents, where parents are now looking and working through a proposed regulations manual, including enforcement. And I'm anxious to hear what parents have to say in terms of the kinds of policies and the kinds of enforcement that they'd like to see. But again, I'll remind the member, as I do on an ongoing basis, that yes, we as a government have minimum standards in place. We have regulations in place. We monitor them on an ongoing basis. We license theirs according to these standards and regulations. We visit them 3 to 4 times a year. The social care facility review committee is there at least once a year and sometimes more. But in spite of all of these, Mr. Speaker, again, I would remind the member that it's important for parents to also make some of these evaluations. In terms of ratios, again, I come back to the choice that parents have to make. We put in place minimum standards. If parents feel that higher standards are necessary or higher standards are appropriate, they have every right. They have every right to ask for that as well, Mr. Speaker. We work in partnership.
Your Honourable Minister, thank you. Edmonton Glengarry, on behalf of the Liberal Party.
Mr. Speaker, I want to follow up on, again, a most tragic situation in our city, but to start by complimenting the Minister for attending at that daycare center and looking into exactly what happened. Mr. Speaker, I'm concerned because our caucus has learned that other accidents have taken place at this particular daycare center. I'd like to know from the Minister, in addition to his personal view at the daycare center, what departmental action has been initiated to ensure that no infractions did take place or are taking place or were taking place at this particular daycare center.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the member for Edmonton Glengarry that as I left the daycare center this morning, I left two very senior people there from our department that are reviewing the circumstances in a very thorough and exhaustive way.
One of the difficulties, Mr. Speaker, that daycare experiences in Alberta is that there are no regulations that make it mandatory when there are infractions for mothers and fathers to learn about these infractions. Will the minister commit to a regulation change that would call for letters to be sent to the parents when serious infractions do occur, so that the mothers and fathers can at least have the option of deciding whether to pull their children out of a daycare center or not?
Mr. Speaker, that's one of the very important issues that I've asked this parent advisory committee to make specific recommendations on, in terms of whether it should be a letter or whether it should be posted. Parents are deciding at this very moment, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure that they'll come forward with an appropriate recommendation, and I'll entertain it at that time.
Mr. Speaker, the committee was to report in April, as we understood it. There shouldn't be dilly-dallying on an important issue like this. Will the minister agree to at least the most basic of knowledge being given to parents, and that is to do what non-profit daycare centers do, and that is when there is an infraction, that infraction is posted on the premises? Will the minister commit to change the regulations for all daycares so that when there is a serious infraction, that infraction is posted so that mothers and fathers know that something's wrong?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that the member pointed out that many daycares are applying that practice as it stands. Again, I would say that no, parents aren't dilly-dallying along with this report. Parents are taking the appropriate time to go through these regulations in a very exhaustive way. They know what's at stake. They're concerned about their children and other children using daycare, and I'm quite confident in saying that they're going to come forward with the appropriate, balanced, and responsible recommendations on the regulations as they apply, and I look forward to taking those recommendations and seeing them implemented.
Member for Cardston, followed by West Yellowhead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Premier. We know that our Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs is being very ably representing Alberta at the constitutional discussions these past several weeks. But could the Premier advise the Assembly if he has had any meetings in recent days with the federal government to discuss Senate reform? Has the Premier become directly involved in this process?
Mr. Speaker, members and Albertans, I'm sure, would know that there are certain unresolved constitutional issues remaining, and they are in a way interrelated. They are the matter of Senate reform, and for Alberta, a Triple-E Senate, and Quebec's demand for a veto. Being unresolved, they did lead to a telephone conversation between myself and the Prime Minister on Saturday, where we were seeking solutions to finding a way of settling this matter. And at his request, I met with the Honourable Joe Clark on Sunday in Red Deer, and we did have approximately an hour-long meeting there, and I always enjoy meetings with Joe, who is a friend of mine.
Mr. Speaker, supplementary to the Premier, Albertans are becoming pretty anxious about the direction some of the issues are taking and the various deadlines that are approaching on our constitutional circumstances. Could the Premier give us some insight of those discussions, and has he been able to make way in convincing Mr. Clark of the benefit of a Triple-E Senate for all of Canada?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Clark certainly raised with me the matter of Alberta's strong request and the fact that we have been able to get 5 provinces supporting Triple-E and another government, the government of the Northwest Territories. But he I think it's fair to say, was trying to establish whether Alberta would move away from the desire for a Triple E Senate. And I made it very clear that for some 125 years now, Mr. Speaker, we have had a parliament where the House of Commons is dominated by Ontario and Quebec. We have the Senate dominated by Ontario and Quebec. We have the issue of the Supreme Court of Canada, where Ontario and Quebec have 6 of the 9 Supreme Court judges, 3 to the rest of the country. And I made it clear that Alberta will not entrench, or will not agree to entrench, this numerical superiority in the Constitution again. And therefore, we are very firm on the matter of an elected Senate, and we're pleased that people have all come behind Alberta on that issue. But we are equally as firm that the Senate be effective, that it can and will stop a national energy program. It must have strong effective powers in the areas of provincial jurisdiction. And, Mr. Speaker, it must be equal. If we are going to balance out this huge numerical superiority in the House of Commons and in the Supreme Court, we will not be part of any agreement that entrenches that numerical superiority into the Senate as well.
West Yellowhead, followed by Calgary Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file excerpts from a recent report done by the Department of the Environment. This study concludes that the chlorinated organics in the Wellwood and Procter & Gamble pulp mill do not break down, but persist downstream as far as the Peace Athabasca Delta and the Slave River. Mr. Speaker, what is the Minister of Environment doing to ensure that Wellwood pulp mill at Hinton doesn't rest on its laurels because it's meeting the 1.5 kilogram per dried ton AOX standard, but moves instead toward a continual reduction of its discharge in chlorinated organics, reaching a 0 level?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we're doing exactly as the Honour wants us to do. We're saying to the pulp mills that it's the policy of this government that you must meet the best achievable standards available in the world today, and that's exactly what we're telling Wellwood and P&G to do.
Good. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the constituents of Hinton and West Yellowhead that I'll never agree with the minister, as he said last year, that that mill should be shut down. But given that the Minister of the Environment is creating uncertainty in the pulp business because companies do not know whether the province is going to reduce the 1.5 kilogram standard for AOX discharge in the future, when is the government going to follow the lead of other provinces and set a fair and reasonable time frame for bleachcraft mills to completely eliminate discharge from chlorinated organics?
Mr. Speaker, just to refresh the honourable member's memory, I challenge his buddy, the honourable member for Edmonton Jasper Place, who expressed great concern about the Hinton pulp mill, to go up there with his friend from West Yellowhead and say, I want the mill closed down. Well, he wouldn't do that, of course. Whether you... Thank you. In answer to the question, Mr. Speaker, certainly it's the policy of this government, as I've outlined before, to achieve the highest possible standards with respect to chlorinated organics. The report that the honourable member just tabled was a report that was tabled, as a matter of fact, in 1990. It was a report that was tabled before the LPAC panel, and it did indeed indicate that chlorinated organics don't break down. It's for precisely that reason, Mr. Speaker, that we have instituted in this province a standard that really says that whatever is the best achievable standard in the world is the standard that must apply. It's a far greater standard than that has been imposed or is even contemplated by NDP governments in Ontario, Saskatchewan, or British Columbia, where they really do have stinking, rotten, belching, polluting pulp mills. Right.
Calgary Northwest, followed by Drayton Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On November the 29th of 1990, the Minister responsible for Technology, Research and Telecommunications assured the House that our losses on Novotel would be $28 million at the very, very... That's a direct quote, by the way, from page 2510 of Hansard. Considering now we're looking at a minimum of $566 million, I think the judgment of the Minister is a little questionable at best. My question to the Minister is, given that Nova in 1984, 86, 87, and 88 wrote down a total of $17 million on this corporation, Novotel, why would the Minister allow AGT to assume 100% control of a company that never, ever turned a profit?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I recognize that the honourable member is pursuing this business of carrying on a sort of a partisan investigation. If he has information or questions that he feels should be undertaken by the Auditor General, who is an independent official that's been put in there to review the entire thing, to tell the whole story, then he should bring the matter forward to him. All I could say is that the figures that we presented are nothing new. They were put in the prospectus relative to projections of losses or profits, and then in the amended prospectus in order to be fully frank with the people of Alberta who were subscribing to the TELUS share offering. Now, that information was put out there. It was the information that came to us by firms of auditors that we relied upon in that regard.
Well, Mr. Speaker, my supplementary is, we know that Novotel, at the time when the government bought it back, they were getting 40% of the materials purchased returned because of faulty product. And I guess my supplementary question to the business government we have over there was, where was the business plan that suggested, that told you, go out and buy this company that is clearly failing, that has clearly never turned a profit, and doesn't have a product that people are buying? Where was the business plan?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is misconstruing the situation totally. We took back Novotel at the time of the information coming forward because we had to, in order to preserve the integrity of the TELUS share offering. And that TELUS share offering, as the honourable member knows, provided $500 million to the taxpayers of Alberta. It removed well over $1 billion, between $1 and $1.5 billion of loans and guarantees from the backs of taxpayers. It prevented the taxpayer from the obligation of having to put forward capital investment in the future of close to $2 billion. So in order to preserve the integrity of that share offering, which was a very important decision for us to make at that time, that's why we bought it back. It wasn't a matter of economic policy. We pursued the matter of putting it into the private sector, and that's the way we did it.
Drayton Valley, followed by Edmonton Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, it was recently announced that there will be 7 strategic planning sessions held in the month of June to examine issues and concerns related to the health system role statement process. Could the Minister of Health comment more specifically on what the aims and goals of these meetings are to be?
Mr. Speaker, there is an immense amount of reform going on, not just in Alberta, but in the Canadian health system, in order to ensure that we have a sustainable health system into the future. Part of what we are doing in Alberta is a very collaborative process, which, frankly, many of the other provinces have given up on, in an attempt to get the health sector itself looking towards solutions. The honourable member will know, because we discussed it in this legislature, of a meeting I held with province-wide agencies on May the 8th. The process continues, which in this month will include workshop sessions around the province at 7 locations, and then moving on towards the fall period, where we will attempt to get some area-wide multi-sector planning networks
for planning the future shape and form of our healthcare system.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Rainbow Report at one time suggested the formation of regional supervisory boards, and this was one recommendation that was rejected by this government. To the Minister, do these 7 regional meetings indicate that there is now being some thought given to 7 regional boards in these areas?
Not at all, Mr. Speaker. We simply identified convenient locations geographically around the province where we could run the forums out of. It doesn't presuppose any kind of form to the health collaboration that's underway. Rather, it ensures that we're getting out to discuss within regions of the province the form it may take on. But certainly there is no thought being given that those would be the regions. In fact, it is up to the area planning networks to then define not just the geographic but the program regions that will be needed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Minister responsible for women's issues. The recent demographic overview of Alberta families by the Premier's Council in Support of Families gives us cause for concern about the economic situation of single-parent families headed by women. The report notes that 61% of all female lone-parent families have low incomes, and that female one-earner, one-parent families with children under 18 have experienced a 17% drop in income since 1981. Given these alarming statistics, will the Minister now recognize the necessity for pay equity legislation to address at least part of the 35-cent on the dollar gap between the incomes of men and women?
Mr. Speaker, as I've said before on numerous occasions, I certainly support the principle of pay equity insofar as what it really is saying is that any classification plan by an employer should be gender-free in its classifications. However, as Judge Abella said in her report on employment equity, even with pay equity, that would only address perhaps 5% of the wage gap. The larger discrepancy arises because of what is called occupational segregation. And it is on occupational segregation that we have instituted, as the member knows, many strategies. There are longer-term strategies, but they have proven to be very popular. I'll mention just one because I think the House knows all of them quite well. A Stepping Stones program, which is delivered by and through the schools in junior high, has been a very successful program.
Well, Mr. Speaker, pay equity legislation might well address the issue of low-paid jobs due to occupational segregation by going outside of companies and doing across-the-board analysis of pay equity. So it's no excuse. The Council review also points out that the income of female lone-parent families with children under 18 where there is no earner has dropped from $15,000 a year to $13,000 a year since 1986. To the Minister responsible for women, as most of these families rely on social assistance for support, will the Minister now lobby her cabinet colleagues to increase social assistance rates to adequate levels, thereby eliminating the cause of so many of the social problems experienced by these families?
The member is on a very important issue, and it is often the case, not always, but is often the case that women who have custody of the children do not have the skills and tools which will enable them to get jobs which pay a salary that is sufficient to keep them and the family in proper circumstances. Consequently, it is a very high-risk group for poverty, and that's been shown time and time again. I think that we don't have all the answers, but I think that what we need to do, among other things, is work with the individuals that fall into that category, that is to say, not having skills which will command a sufficient wage in the market, to ensure that they do get the skills and the tools that are necessary for them to secure well-paying jobs.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as hard as this is to believe, the Treasurer is telling local authorities and other pension negotiators that somehow there are $250 million in excess assets in the government employee pension plans, and the Treasurer wants to lay claim to them. How can this Treasurer justify for 1 minute taking $250 million from government employee pension plans, which already have an unfunded pension liability of $6 billion?
Mr. Speaker, I think this again is in the domain of foolishness, which the member from Meadowlark is now renowned to speak of.
Mr. There we have it, yeah. That's a good answer. Mr. Speaker, we've been told explicitly by local authority board pension members that the government negotiators are attempting to secure $250 million from those funds, probably to help pay down the Treasurer's spiraling deficit. If he isn't willing to admit or is saying that this isn't occurring, will the Treasurer then please promise and back his commitment that this isn't occurring, promise that that money, all the money in those funds, belongs to the employees, and promise that he will not pilfer it to pay down his deficit or for any other reason?
Mr. Speaker, when I listen to the Liberal rhetoric across the way, which I'm sure is confusing to most people as it is to me, it reminds me of the high-tech example of the election of a leader in Nova Scotia by the Liberal Party. It's the same kind of advanced thinking that you see from the Liberal Party right across Canada. And it was an absolute abysmal failure, just as that member's questions, and that has been a failure. Here's the problem, Mr. Speaker. I'll reduce this to very easy terms so the people of Alberta will understand it, because they don't understand what the Liberal Party across the way is saying at all. Mr. Speaker, when the government put $1 billion of assets into the 5 plans in 1981, we in fact over-contributed. Now, since that fund has grown strongly, there is an excess amount of money in that fund, above the $1.1 billion that the Alberta government gave to the pension plans, and we're now in the process, Speaker, we're now in the process. I know the people across the way in the Liberal Party have no respect for the question period, continue to make mockery of the way in which we answer the questions, and then turn around and say we're not answering questions, Mr. Speaker. It's not a defensible position on their behalf at all. We now have $200 million or so, Mr. Speaker, which are unallocated assets in the large pool of money, the $6 billion which the funds now have, and we will allocate that on the basis of some equitable value. We have made that commitment. All the boards agree to it, Mr. Speaker, and the members agree to it as well in the pension funds. It's simply a question of allocating among the 5 plans on some equitable basis, and we'll do just that. Now, that's the kind of nonsense you get from that guy across the way. A simple answer. He's confusing it. He's trying to distort the facts, Mr. Speaker, and it's unfair.
For Calgary Bowl.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Education. Mr. Minister, I recently met with some of my constituents from the St. Andrews Heights community. My constituents are very concerned by the Calgary School Board's decision to charge $350 per pupil to bus the children to school starting this September. Mr. Minister, they've been told this action is necessary because this government has cut transportation grants. So I can inform my constituents, Mr. Minister, of the facts. Would you please set the record straight? Have these grants been cut?
Absolutely not, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question because I'm hearing from a number of constituents in Calgary Shaw on the same issue. Mr. Speaker, our funding, provincial taxpayers' funding of transportation for the Calgary Board of Education is going to grow this coming year by about 9%. In addition to the 3% increase that was announced back in January, there will be volume enrollment growth of some 6% associated with this grant, so that the provincial contribution will grow from by about $870,000 to
just a little over $10.4 million for the 1992-93 school year. And Mr. Speaker, I'm advised by information received from the Calgary Public Board of Education that their total spending, estimated spending for transportation in the forthcoming school year is just shy of $15.7 million, which means that the provincial contribution is in the order of about 67%.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Minister, again, my constituents had questions about the distance necessary for a child to qualify for board-paid busing. Confusion seems to be whether the distance is 2.4 kilometers or 4.8 kilometers, and which one is used to determine who qualifies. Mr. Minister, could you please explain how the transportation grant is determined?
Good question. Well, Mr. Speaker, it's an important question because there is some misunderstanding, I know, by some members of the Calgary Board of Education in this matter. There is a provincial requirement in the Act that says that children living more than 4.8 kilometers from their home must be transported to school. But in the case of the Calgary Board of Education, the board, not the government, but the Board of Education has made changes to their walk limit and increased it from 1.2 kilometers to this year being 2.4 kilometers. But for the purposes of the grant that provincial taxpayers provide to the Calgary Board of Education, that walk limit is no longer relevant because in 1989, at the request, Mr. Speaker, at the request of the Calgary Board of Education, we went to a totally different urban transportation block grant program so that they wouldn't have to go through the unnecessary paperwork of counting all of those students. And instead, we moved to a block grant program that the two boards in Calgary and the two boards in Edmonton, but in particular the Calgary Board of Education, was fully supportive of. And I can only reiterate, Mr. Speaker, that block grant program will, in this coming school year, fund about 67% of the Board of Education's total transportation costs.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister responsible for the Workers' Compensation Board today. In the annual report from 1991 that was released just recently, there's a note that the WCB in Alberta now has an accumulated unfunded liability of $601 million. Mr. Speaker, that's more than the official acknowledged loss of $566 million on the Novotel situation, just to give people an idea of how much that is. And in a statement, in this report that was signed by both the chairman of the board and the president, or the former president, the board admits that it has no plan to move towards a fully funded system anytime in the near future. So my question to the minister is, will he tell Albertans whether he supports the WCB's continued racking up of multi-million-dollar deficits, and if not, what does he propose to do to address this problem?
Mr. Speaker, the unfunded liability is, as the member mentions, in Workers' Compensation Board, and the board has been instructed to work out the assessment in the next year to reduce that deficit. I might say, too, Mr. Speaker, that the unfunded liability in Alberta is a far cry from Ontario, where it's at $12 billion.
Mr. Speaker, can the minister then give assurance today to the workers of this province, and in particular to the workers who may be injured on the job, will he give an assurance that steps will be taken, and can he tell us exactly what they will be so that we will not have this liability compromising the benefits and services available to injured workers in the future?
Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate the member that is supposed to be the critic for WCB doesn't know anything about it, because he doesn't know anything about the Workers' Compensation Board, because if he did, he would know very well that the unfunded liability has no connection at all whatsoever to the payments to injured workers. Now, if he learned how to be a critic, he might be able to get the right answer.
Westlock Sturgeon. Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The recent decisions by Judges Ayotte and Fraser make it clear that the existing provincial hunting regulations do not apply to treaty Indians. But this does not mean, however, Mr. Speaker, that native hunting cannot be regulated, provided that it is done in consultation with the native peoples. The question is to the Solicitor General. In view of the need to preserve Alberta's wildlife, both for the benefit of the native people and for the non-natives, would the minister take the lead in striking a committee with employees or leading officials from both the Wildlife Department and the Native Affairs Department and to meet with the Alberta Treaty Indians to work out some sort of a compromise on our hunting regulations?
Mr. Speaker, the question that was directed would be more appropriately directed to the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife, and I will certainly take it as a matter of notice.
Good. Mr. Speaker, I was trying to employ him, that's all. He should be, somebody has to put the three departments together, and it's his department that enforces the regulations on hunting, and he's doing a cop-out here. It's, Mr. Speaker, then, in view of the court decisions, what mechanism, then, does the minister have in place in order to handle the right of treaty Indians to hunt?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member should do a little more research into this. The Department of Solicitor General does not enforce the Wildlife Act and the hunting regulations. We have officers set out to do that are empowered under the Police Act. But if there are incidences involving the criminal code, it certainly comes before the police under my jurisdiction. But in all due respect, there is a constitutional issue here as to do with native hunting rights, and I would direct the honourable member to do some research into this.
Plain. Stony Plain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, parents of special needs children are led to believe that they have a choice about where they can send their children. But in reality, this is not true. The placement process can be so difficult that the choice disappears. For example, whenever the decision is made that a student of the deaf culture would best benefit from attending the Alberta School for the Deaf operated by Alberta Education, the home school board must pay the difference between the per student grant they receive to operate regular programming and the cost of the ASFD program, which is around $19,000. As a result, this government is forcing school boards to set up often ineffective local programs for the deaf that, for example, may have inadequate translation services. Given that the minister must now agree that this practice is causing hardship and inequity for students, families, and school boards, will he instruct Alberta Education to fully fund those students who choose to attend the Alberta School for the Deaf, thereby ensuring that, in fact, there is real parental choice?
Mr. Speaker, it's the responsibility of school boards in this province to provide a program especially a special education program, that meets the unique needs of that child, an adequate program that meets the needs of that child. For this government to take the kind of approach that the honourable member is suggesting would absolve school boards of that very fundamental responsibility. So, Mr. Speaker, we are helping school boards through the likes of the Education Response Centre and through other initiatives by my colleagues in social services and health to try to help school boards to more and more provide these important kinds of programs. But, Mr. Speaker, in the end, if a parent is not satisfied with the adequacy of the placement of his or her special education child, there is an appeal process that, following a no decision from a school board, then that parent may then appeal to the Minister of Education, where the matter will be reviewed thoroughly and a final decision can be made.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the minister supporting the fact that this is a difficult process for parents. I was hoping that he would show leadership in this important issue. The minister has recently released a policy draft that states that an individual unique needs of each child must be a priority focus in providing education to all students. Deaf children deserve the choice of education in their own culture. When will the minister direct Alberta Education to continue the current program at the Alberta School for the Deaf and increase enrollment, thereby making the school more efficient and thus guaranteeing its continuation at a far lower cost and increased efficiency?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member can't have it both ways. He stands on that side of the House from time to time and decries the government for taking away school boards' right to make decisions. Local autonomy is what he talks about. And, Mr. Speaker, in this case, the school board has the responsibility, through its local autonomy, through the Act, that says that it must provide a program that meets that child's needs. And if in the course of designing that program, it is unable to design an adequate program, then it may make a decision to have that child placed and taught and educated through the Alberta School for the Deaf. I encourage school boards who are unable to provide such a program to do just that. But, Mr. Speaker, I think it would be unfair to many parents across this province to simply say, thou shalt educate your children through the Alberta School for the Deaf. If it is found that that school board is capable, is willing, is making all the effort that it can to provide an education program to that child. But, Mr. Speaker, in the end, if a parent...
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Thou shalt come to the end of question period. Orders of the day. Orders of the day.